Hello everyone and welcome to F1 Esports Spa. And first of all, I want to address the no audio. This will only be active or deactivated, I should say, in the qualifying session. And once we get back into race session, the audio will be fixed. The onboard is provided not by us, it's by F1. So I just imagine there was a small technical issue behind the scenes. But as I say, the audio will be fixed for the race, so my qualifying highlights have been shortened down to minimize the action basically and get quicker to the point that you can actually hear the car sounds, as I think it's much more enjoyable to watch that way. Anyway, so we was able to go through Q1. Q1 was in the intermediate conditions, and ultimately Q2 started out in the dry conditions as well, and as you can see, we invalidated our first lap here in Q2. We actually had quite a lot of difficulties. We had quite a lot of problems going into this qualifying session, that the wheel had basically a lack of feeling, was just completely numb. And yeah, so I was driving just purely off memory and muscle memory of what should happen. And you see me, especially in this final lap here in Q2 coming up, as we're finishing off our first lap in Q2, of course, going to P15 as it was invalidated with a 40.571. You'll see in my final lap coming up now, actually, there's a lot of corrections in the car and a lack of ability to rotate the car properly as well. Just really because I didn't have the feeling, so didn't have the confidence to really rotate the car around the apex in a really efficient manner. As this game, you do need to do a little bit of drifting, especially in the low speed corners. You will see it's just a lot of understeer and hesitation to be turning the car in. Even with that being said though, we did go a 10th up on our delta out of turn 1. And also, as you'll see after this qualifying session, the wheel does get replaced. The complete wheelbase and the wiring got replaced between the qualifying and the race. Will completely fix this issue. So you'll see a small clip of that after this qualifying session. But as we go into Sector 2 here, and you can see it's not really that amazing of a first sector split. And we're starting to throw the car around, dancing on the limit. Multiple steering corrections on the exit here as we go into the downhill section in the second sector. Known and famous for its understeer as we're going through, and you can see multiple stabs of the wheel here, especially on the exit, just trying to keep the car in bounds. We missed the apex by a shed width, to be honest. Absolutely massively under limit through Puon. Again, just did not have the feeling, did not have the confidence to put the car in. And now we're coming towards the end of the second sector split. Again, just the lap is messy. It's not hooked up. It's not on the limit. It's not where we need it to be. And ultimately, you can see just not getting the lap time out of it so far. 12.2 in the middle sector. So coming into the final sector here is pretty much everything to gain, nothing really to lose. So we're just going to absolutely send the car in to the final chicane and see what we can make of it. Back to 55% on the differential, 55% brake bias. And you can see, let the car rotate, lots of stabs at the steering wheel, hard back on the power, run up to the line. And ultimately, it is provisionally going to put us P6. Well, considering all the circumstances and how messy the lap was, that was sensational for me at least. And ultimately, we did get bumped down to P12 in the end. But to be honest, P12 with the set of circumstances that we had with this wheel issue, I'm more than happy with. I'm very happy with that. And as you can see now, we got a little bit of testing time. We've got approximately 3 laps of Portimao to get used to the wheel. So you can see me just throwing the car around, trying to generate wheel spin, trying to get the feeling with the wheel as the wheel goes heavier, lighter, depending if you have understeer, oversteer, or what the car is telling you that it's doing. Ultimately now, coming to the end of the second lap here, you can see that I'm starting to push the car a lot more. And yeah, you can see I'm starting to have a little bit more confidence with the car, a bit more feeling. So now I'm able to go into the Spa race with a lot more confidence. And speaking of the Spa race here on the grid with 4 lights, 5 lights, and lights out, and away we go here in Spa. And chaos is going to ensue straight away. The Haas and the Alpine instantly make contact. We send it up the inside of John Evans, 3 wide at the apex, and ultimately getting pushed wide onto the exit curb. John Evans is still there, deploying the battery, touching wheels, touching bodywork, and down the straight we go. And now we are up into P10 with Jed immediately just up ahead of us, side by side, through a rouge in fact. That could have ended badly, but racing room and adequate space was just about given at the top of the hill. Now not really looking to attack Jed, but we just about avoid the back of him running wide. That was not smooth, it was not elegant, but it was fortunate not to get damaged, that's for sure. And now into the middle sector where stuff should start to calm down a little bit more. So as I was saying about the wheel issues, yeah, we had the wheel issues in the qualifying, and then we had a few laps of Portimao basically to get used to the new and freshly installed wheelbase, and that was able to fix all the problems that I had in the qualifying session, and I was able to go into the race with much better confidence. As you're going to see, we had much better race pace relative to what we had qualifying, and the racing and the driving, I should say, looks a lot more tidy, clean and precise from the onboard, and how I felt driving as well. So right now, I was getting a bit more dialed into the wheel, getting used to how it feels, as ultimately we're coming under attack from John Evans directly behind me, and he's on the soft compound tyres, I'm on the hard, so there's no point to fight him, there's no point to waste my battery in a fight that is just inevitably going to lose me a lot of race time, and probably lose him a lot of race time anyway if I was to fight it. Again, you can see I opted to do a lifting coast, save a bit more battery, save a little bit more fuel as well, so we don't have to do any fuel saving later in the race, and we can start to maximize our battery efficiency down here. So now Ismail sends it down the inside, and watch really carefully, we're going to go in slow motion. There's damage, there's a front wing that flies off just there, you can see it to the left of screen, and I saw this when driving. I recognized what happened, and I knew that there was a car up ahead in this pack that had front wing damage, and quite substantial front wing damage at that as well. So right now I'm thinking, right, what can I do? How can I secure my position? How can I keep my front wing intact? You can see I don't use the battery. I leave plenty of space ahead, plenty of space behind, so I can adapt to the situation as it comes and do the maximum to keep my car safe and keep my race alive. As now I can see it's Alfie who has the front wing damage, so we do the switchback, turn on the battery, and we're able to get up the inside of him very efficiently and not lose any time to the cars around us. In fact, I'm pretty sure the cars directly ahead of us actually used their battery on the DRS straight as well, and I was ultimately able to use none of my battery, and that allowed me to have an advantage of battery relative to them as well. Start at lap 3, you can see the gap went up to 1.3 seconds on the straight once again, because they're battling hard, they're using a lot of their battery, whereas I still got 62% battery and able to close back into the DRS zone of them in the middle sector. So showing our race pace is much stronger already than our qualifying pace. Lap 5, John Evans, as we say, we let him pass earlier, and now we start using our battery to get back past him, and still on the hard compound tyres we still have 47% battery, and that's looking very solid for us right now. We think about having an attack of Ismail Fassi, but decide against it. Ultimately is not worth our battery and not worth the risk at this point in the race. Lap 5 still, and John Evans, the hard tiger, is absolutely coming back at us on the soft compound tyres, and to be honest, I was not expecting this. I really was not expecting it, and he just sends it. Absolutely sends it down the inside. I'm like, alright, okay, leave the space. Leave the space on the exit as well. And he actually hooks our tyre here as well. You can see he hooks our rear right tyre, gets momentum. And I was like, nah, I'm not having any of this. Chop off his nose. And now we're back into position. It was quite aggressive for me, but I was not too happy with his tagging my rear tyre to get himself better momentum. So we used a little bit of a battery, and ultimately was able to retain our position anyway here in P10 on lap 6 of the Belgium GP. Again, it seems like he's using quite a bit of battery as we rise over the hill, but ultimately does not have the straight line speed to get past. But speaking of straight line speed, Daniel Beresne and Mercedes, wow, man, you're going to see later in this video, their straight line speed was insane. And speaking of their straight line speed, start of lap 10, I made a small error front right lockup as we go into the apex and lose a little bit of time. But I'm thinking, no worries, no stress, no problem. Use a bit of battery on the exit and we'll be safe and sound. We can retain our provisional P6 in the race. But no. Mercedes and Jarno cooked a setup. And look at this, even before the DRS board, he's flown past me and he's already in Narnia. He's already gone. He's already said ciao, and he's got a coffee ready for his dinner. Like, it was ridiculous how fast their car was in a straight line. We had a really good pace in the middle sector, was able to keep up and manage our tyres, as ultimately I made a big mistake here, quite simply as I was thinking I was distracted by their straight line speed, to be honest. I was thinking, right, what could I do to counteract that straight line speed? And we almost crashed in thinking about that process anyway. So, full focus ahead, lap 11, we hook up turn 1 much better this lap, and able not to leave ourselves too vulnerable to Daniel Beresne. But with their straight line speed, you're going to see again, They turn on the battery, they turn on the burners, and they're just going to say, see you later. And they're just going to fly past. Even now, watching this back like a few months after the race, I still can't believe it, to be honest. Yeah. Effectively waved the white flag on that straight, started saving the battery at the end of the straight as well, and waited for better opportunities, as now the Mercedes actually swapped on this back straight, and straight away, once I saw that they swapped, I knew that Daniel Brendon was boxing this lap. I knew it. And what I was super aware of right now was Jarno making a second or more gap to Daniel Brendon to get me out of the DRS of the train ahead. So I was following Jarno, and I got told to box this lap no matter what happened. So I was following Jarno as closely as possible without burning too much of my battery, and ultimately managing that gap to Daniel Brendon, making sure it doesn't go over 1 second before we get in the pit lane, to make sure I can retain the DRS on the pit lane exit as well, starting lap 13. So late on the brakes, and now you can see the gap is 7 tenths to Brendon, what was good enough for me, and everyone boxed ahead of us, what was a bit disastrous for our strategy, to be honest, because we were already on the hards, and they took the mediums as far as we did with a hard compound tyre. The medium is a really good race tyre here anyway, so it makes sense for their race to do this. But yeah, it was really bad for our race, really bad for our strategy, to be honest, that we came in on the same lap as everyone ahead of us. So now we've got a bit of a suboptimal situation, but an opportunity to make the most of it anyway. So now on pit exit, lap 13, you can see we have nearly 100% battery left in our car. So we have a great opportunity to fight our way forward and to be smart and to be tactical with the rest of the race. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on saving my tyres, leaving myself a lot of battery to get critical overtakes done later in the stint where their soft tyres are going off, and ultimately when they have less grip than us as well. There's carnage ensuing up ahead as there's cars touching wheels as John Evans is now falling through the pack, and Daniel Brendon looks up the inside of John Evans, but nothing doing there. You can see we have so much more battery than even I anticipated to have at this point in the race. So we've done a really good job of managing the battery, and as you can see, we have so much more battery than the cars ahead of us as well, as a lot of them will start flashing, indicating on their rear light when it starts flashing red that they are underneath 10% deployment available, and of course that's going to give them less power and less opportunity to attack or defend relative to us. Through the chicane, starting lap 16 here, and you can see checking my engine temps, keeping them nice and cool, and now John Evans is going to be my first target here. We set up a good exit from turn 1, nice and close. We turn on the battery, we catch him unaware, and we're able to be already past before rising up the hill of Eau Rouge and Radion, up into provisionally P11. So one more, can I get my words out today? There we go. One more place to gain, and then we'll be in the points paying position again, managing the engine temperatures. Carnage is ensuing up ahead, so I'm going to brake early, leave myself plenty of options. I go for the switchback, I look for the better exit, I have to leave the space for Brendon, and now you can see we turn on the battery a little bit, but Ismail is turning on his battery more down the straight, and I don't want to waste it. We have so much more battery than possibly the cars ahead, so now it's going to leave us a great opportunity to be really smart and efficient later in this race as well. And ultimately, we can send in dive bombs, as ultimately we're all over the back of Ismail right now. We can send in dive bombs, we can go by side, but it's way less risky and, to be honest, faster for our race if we just overtake on the straight like this. You can do heroic overtakes, you can use the battery into chicane, you can dive bomb, you can go side by side, but ultimately if you're doing more risk and reward, it's not worth it. At the moment we've been able to be smart, make smart overtakes as we're looking around the outside of Nicolas Longuet, deep on the brakes, around the outside. He leaves us racing room. You can see we back out of it one more time because there's no need for me to be going side by side into this next apex where we can risk a crash. I know he has low battery, I know that possibly he has damage right now, and ultimately I'm lifting going into Pouon so I can get a great exit, and that's what we've done. Around the outside now, we're going to fake him, look to the outside, look to the inside, late on the brakes as we can, deep on the inside, get the place done, don't allow him to come around the outside of us, and that is up into P9 position here on lap 17. But as I was saying, there's time for risk, and sometimes there's time to play it safe and not to risk silly overtakes, silly damage. Ultimately, even a crash isn't your fault. A crash is a crash, and that could be the end of your race. Rising up over the hill behind Jed, we're able to fly past him on the straight, again, quite simply because he doesn't have the battery. So in the work that we did saving the battery early in the race, we've been able to maximize and be super critical with the overtakes that we've been able to do, and do minimal risk and maximum reward during this race as well. So you can see rising up over the hill. So sometimes, even if you do not have the fastest car in a straight, and we recognize that early on, especially with the Mercedes. Speaking of the Mercedes, Jarno straight line near has arrived on the back of us once more, and time to wave hello to Jarno and goodbye to Jarno as well. See you later, mate. Ciao, ciao. And ultimately, yeah, as I was saying, if we can do safe overtakes and not be risking something that we don't need to be risking, even with a car that's slower in a straight line, we can work around that and be smart and to be strategical to save the battery and to compromise for the negatives and the disadvantages that we might have in the race, to maximize our advantages, to maximize the opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, we are right behind Tom Manley with a load more battery than him, because he was flashing as well directly before us. Rising up Haru, small snap of oversteer as we get to the top of the hill, opening up the battery. He's flashing on the battery again, and still we have like 50, high 40% of the battery as we sweep past him into P7. Now, my focus is on these Mercedes up ahead. What can I do? I've got 42% battery starting the final lap of the race. I just knew that I was not going to out-drag them on a straight line down this DRS straight. That was realistically never going to happen unless I saw his battery flashing right now. But again, realistically not going to happen. So I opted to play it long. I opted to play it in a different way, and to save my battery down the DRS straight, I knew that I was safe from Tom, so I didn't have a risk from the car behind. As you see, we did a quick check there. So ultimately, just trying to stay within 6-7 tenths of Jarno on this back straight as well, 34% at the end of the straight, and using my higher wings and knowing that my medium compound tyres should be faster on this final lap compared to the Mercedes up ahead of Jarno, that I can maybe, just maybe, close in on the middle sector, find a place to send a dive bomb, send a lunge, send an overtake, as it's ultimately the last lap, and we need to try and get past this Mercedes, as we are fighting them in the Constructors' Championship as well. So you can see going through pull on for the final time in this race. 3 tenths behind. Now we start to turn on the battery. Now we start to search for the opportunity. Now we're looking to be hunting all over the back of them. Use our higher downforce to our advantage. Now 2.5 tenths behind. Late on the brakes. You can see small wiggle with oversteer with a dirty air, reducing the grip and downforce for our car. Turning on the battery. And I was praying that I saw his car flashing right now. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen yet. And we start flashing at almost identical times. So realistically, I knew the chance to get past Jarno in the chicane was little to none. I saw Brendon fighting up ahead with the Red Bull, and Brendon sends it, and I start thinking, okay, let's do the switchback, let's get the best exit possible, let's see if we can maximize and benefit from carnage up ahead, but nothing doing there, and ultimately just staying in P7 as Brendon ultimately led past Jarno on the start-finish line as well, to of course aid the championship battle for Jarno, and Mercedes got the same amount of points anyway in that situation. So very nice teamwork, to be honest, by the Mercedes in this race. And yeah, we was able to fight back from P12 to P7 in this race, not really do any risks, just do smart, clean, clinical racing, and that was able to promote us into a very good points-paying position, especially considering where we started. So that was a good race. I'm very happy with that race, and I will catch you tomorrow for what I believe should be Zandvoort. So thank you everyone for watching, and hopefully you're enjoying these F1 Esports highlights. I'll catch you tomorrow. Glad you was actually. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.